Alright, I'd like to give all praises and glory to Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, by Shem Yakwakadash, double and honors to the elders at GMS who's pushing this truth with all truth and sincerity. Shalom. And this is a news article from PBS News, and it says, the title of this article, it says, Farmer warns of food price spikes as war drives up fuel and fertilizer costs.
Let's focus now on some of the economic
and I'm gonna play this video and real quick.
effects of the war with Iran. About a third of the world's fertilizer supply
Fair use. This is for educational purposes only. You know.
passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and its effective closure is causing shortages and price spikes for fertilizer during the crucial spring planting season. That has led to fears of both elevated food prices and lower crop yields across the globe. This morning, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins told PBS News' Liz Landers that, quote, everything was on the table to fix the problem for American farmers.
Clearly, I think we're at 36 days for the conflict, has elevated the issue of fertilizer and how important it is for American farmers and, frankly, for our food supply. The good news is that about 80% of our farmers actually last fall locked in their fertilizer. So as we're moving into planting season, it's only about 20 to 25% of our farmers that didn't lock that in. We are working directly to ensure that we can get them what they need and it won't bankrupt them.
Now, despite those...
And stopping right there, it doesn't surprise me that, of course, when they make war with Iran and Israel, and it affects the fertilizer, which trickles back to America, being involved in, and this is basically a famine, that was set up, for the American people and by the elites, man. I don't see no coincidence that the farmers are losing nutrients and so forth and need nitrogen for the soil, man. I don't see no coincidence that this is taking place, and not just that, it's affecting the American people as well, and all across the earth, man, with food shortages and whatnot. So
numbers farmers we spoke with say they fear these cost increases could put them over the edge. Here's some of what they told us.
My name is Russell Baining. My family and I farm right south of San Antonio. We're buying nitrogen right now, and it's about 40% higher than it was, 2 or 3 months ago, before the conflict. Let's just say that.
I'm Lance Lillibridge from Benton County, Iowa. We booked most of our fertilizer before the conflict in Iran. However, some of it we did not because it was too expensive. We're probably going to go without that particular nutrient on our crop this year. A lot of other farmers are doing the same thing.
My name is Matt Frostic. I have a crop and livestock operation in Michigan. In January, we were looking at nitrogen for about $350 a ton. Today, that number is bouncing around $600.
Steve Turner. I'm a farmer in northwest Illinois, located about 40 miles northwest of Springfield. We've got a lot of our inputs paid for, but I'm afraid we're going to be looking at some elevated prices for a while.
There's people saying, well, there's 80% of the fertilizer has already been purchased for this year's crop. And we actually heard that figure from USDA. Even if 80% is pre-purchased and the other 20% goes up 50% or more, it can still be a pretty good hit for you.
The reality is we're not breaking even. We didn't break even the last 2 years.
With the increases in the input prices, there are no margins. They appear to be zero at this point.
It's just not the fertilizer, it's going to be the fuel end of this thing. And I know everybody's experiencing that right now with the elevated fuel prices.
I always say if gas and diesel go up, if oil goes up, everything else is going to follow in some form or fashion.
As fuel becomes expensive and it's hard to produce that crop or costs more to produce and transport that crop. It all kind of equates to higher prices.
So much of growing a crop is out of our control, and we can only manage certain things. When the prices of these inputs become so high, gosh, what do we do? I don't know. And I don't think anybody's got a wonderful answer to it.
Well, when it comes to policy,
And you can tell right there, man, this is a manufactured famine, that's taking place, on the planet Earth, man. And one thing that brings me back is to a dream that I had 2 days ago, man, and it was with the mark of the beast, and with rationing, when and this dream, it was I'm not gonna go too far into it, but I'm gonna just get a few key points on the rationing side, and then I'll make another video about the MOTB. But it just skipped into a line. I think if I can remember it right, it was just a group of people in line. I no no, I can vaguely remember, but all I know is that when the setting started to where people had to ration food, and people had to line up and get their food by the ounce, that's when all hell broke loose, man. And that's when people started acting crazy, and that's when they started acting like animals, man, rioting, just tearing shit up, man. Is when the rationing started, and you can actually relate it to these times that we're gonna come into, man. When food is not gonna be accessible as it is now in fast food or in these stores, or when you can't go and get certain items, or when you can't go get your favorite snack or drink, people are gonna lose it, man. And as you heard one of them say, that if the gas prices and diesel went up, how much more is the food prices, that's gonna go up, man. And we're already seeing it, man. I bought a chips and a drink from the damn store, and it was already $8, man. So how much more when all these when all these prices just start going up, So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 15 verse 16. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor their princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power, man. And this is when people start rioting. And in that dream, I seen a lot of people, rioting, acting like animals, man. Doing all, just acting like how you see in those apocalyptic movies, man. When chaos ensues, man. And this is when when people start when they start rationing, man. This is when people, in my dream is when whoever started rationing out food is when people started acting up the most and started just going crazy, man. And I'm gonna go to Isaiah chapter 19. Give me a second. No, this doesn't want to work. All right, this is Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. For nations shall rise against nations, and kingdoms against kingdoms, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginnings of sorrows. And we're right here, you know, we're already seeing nations against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms, man. You know, we're already seeing earthquakes in diverse places. Now pestilence and famines is gonna hit this place, even harder, man. You know, and we're right here at all hell breaking loose, man. Cause soon as they start messing with the food, that's when Americans are gonna crash out, man. And we can already see it, man. Americans can't can't go a day or 2 or 3 days without eating, or less than 24 hours, man. That's how bad it is, man. And you can already tell, the ones who smoke a lot of weed, man, they can barely go a few hours without eating, man, without getting hangry, man. You know, you know, they're mad because they haven't ate anything, man. You know, and the ones that think that weed just tastes, it changes it makes the food better, no, but what it really does is, you know, it affects your way of thinking of you consuming the food, you brothers know, man. You know when you had that homie or that or yourself, man, when you was smoking weed, that angry spirit that you get, when you don't eat, you know which these people are gonna be batshit crazy, excuse my French, but it's gonna get there to where people are gonna lose their minds, man, and especially these women, man, because American, um, uh, America it's catered to these women, you know, and these women use all types of witchcraft, consciously and unconsciously, man. They use witchcraft against even their own children, man, you know. And these women, they're just so in love with America, which they're basically in tune with America's channel, man. They're so in tune with America's channel, man, to where they just basically they just willingly willingly follow Americans customs and worship Americans gods, man. We see it daily, man. you know, and that's why a lot of men fell because they went after these women, and they basically put these women on a pedestal, man. And these women, they shouldn't be on a pedestal, man, because they're so far gone, especially in this society, you know. Living here in America where everything is so backwards in this society, they could easily lead you to worship a different type of God, man. And not just that, but turn everything that you worked for, your kids, your house, they can turn it against you, man. And Esau and Edom has allowed this, in this kingdom, man. So these women has drained men out of their masculinity. They have drained men out of their resources, So this kingdom has a lot to pay for, man, And like I said, some of these women has done this unconsciously, and some of these women has done this willingly and knowing what evil that they have done, you know, you know. But sooner or later, man, this kingdom is gonna get what it deserves, And Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is gonna destroy this kingdom, and wipe it off the face of the earth, man. You know. I think I already got Isaiah. Let's see. And this is Isaiah chapter 2, chapter 19, verse 2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And this is coming, man. This is coming, man. Civil war, chaos, and Latino against Jake against Latino. Esau against the tribes against Esau, man. This is coming, man. Chaos is coming, and it's only brewing, man. And we're at the stages where any day now something big can pop off and cause chaos to ensue on the planet Earth, man. And if Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai did put plagues on Egypt in the ancient world, how much more now when society is catered around women, and when this society is just wicked in itself, man. You can see you can see married women and women with kids, basically they're you can see through their clothing, man. Women have no respect for their selves, man. Here in America, man, women try to thirst trap other men, knowing that they have a husband at home, man. This society is wicked, man. And it's just filth, man. If you really pay attention to how evil and how deceiving these women are, man, it gets to the point to where it's disgusting, man. For them to be knowing what they're doing and knowing how harmful that they're causing to their family, man, and to the household and to the man and to what all the man has worked so hard for and has bent their backs over, man. Basically laboring, man, just to keep their family, to keep a house, to keep a roof over their family and food in their kids' stomach, man. And these wives just sit and just fucking leech off of them, man. This society is done, man. There's no coming back, man. All there is now is just the MOTB and Yahweh Shai showing up to destroy this bitch, man. To destroy this place for good, man. And going back into that dream, man, as soon as they started rationing the food, that's when people started losing their shit, man. And they started rioting and acting like damn wild animals, man. And I'm pretty sure, that was Yahweh Bashim Yahushua was trying to show me something, man. Because there was that and the MOTB being implemented, man. And people are being connected to this to their phones and whatnot, man. Through that chip, man. So I'm gonna save that for another video. But we're getting closer and closer, man. As soon as food, you can't go into the grocery store and get what you want, or food, which the food prices is already going up, but when it starts going up to where you can't, to where food isn't easily accessible or available, people are gonna lose their shit, man. I mean, think about when Popeyes came out with a damn chicken sandwich, and people killed one another over it, man. You know, when Michael Jordan came out with his Jordans, man, we heard stories that, you know, even though I wasn't born in that time, that people died over some damn shoes, man. You know, so how much more, man? These people are gonna be wild animals out here, man, and we're gonna need Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai to save us from this cesspool that we're in, man. You know, we're really in knee deep in this wicked society, the valley of death, man. You know, we're really in the valley of death, man. You know, but I like to give all praises and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Bashim Yakwakadash. Double and honors to the elders at GMS who's pushing this truth with all truth and sincerity, and Shalom.